Welcome to Zoom into a Career, a series designed to introduce students to a culture of high achievement and highlight the many different career pathways available to them. I'm Andrew Kohler, a Community Relations Coordinator here at Yelm Community Schools. And today we have Karen Hall with us to share a little bit about her career. And before we get started, I'd like to remind you that this Zoom is recorded and will be posted on our website for future reviewing. So Karen, welcome.
Good morning.
And, can you tell us a little bit about your position and what you do for the Building Industry Association of Washington?
Sure. So before I describe my position, I just briefly go over what the Building Industry Association of Washington is. We are a membership organization, not unlike the Chamber of Commerce, but people who are in the home building industry, builders, remodelers, electricians, plumbers, etc., join our organization to be part of something whole. We have 14 association local offices across the state, and we have over 8,000 members. So my position as a membership manager is to help support the membership directors at each of those local associations to help get members or to answer questions that members have.
What kind of questions are some that pop up frequently?
The obvious ones like, how do I join? Which they don't join at our office at the state level, at the state association level, but at the locals. They want to know more about what are the advantages. A lot of the questions that I field are actually not directly from members, but from the membership directors themselves. Like, what are the what kinds of classes are coming up that the members can take? What kind of advantages are there? We have a health insurance program. We have education programs, as I said. We also have rebate programs, things like that the members would use as part of their membership. They'd get the advantages of those.
And how did you get into the career field that you're currently in?
Wow. And this is why I thought this would be a really good option for your students, because I kind of came through since the 80s. I started in a office support clerical positions and worked my way into office management, into clerical management, and then customer service management, and into this. So I didn't really veer myself to be in this position. It just kind of happened that way.
And that's kind of a common theme that I've found in doing a few of these interviews so far is, not everyone comes and graduates high school and all of a sudden they're an NBA superstar like Kobe Bryant was. You kind of have to go through a little bit of a different process and, take little bits from a few different positions maybe. And then you kind of figure out what you like to do from there. Does that kind of relate to what you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I can answer that now or later with the other questions you have, because I actually have the answer to that.
Oh, go for it. Yeah. Okay.
So I started because I started in a high school class called Business Office Education. This was way back in the 80s. And I fell in love with being in the support field. And so then I sought out a degree that was an associate's degree that was the only one offered at that time in Colorado as being a legal secretary. I actually have an associate applied sciences degree. And I wanted that because I wanted to hold something different than other people were in that career field, but I didn't want to go for a bachelor's. And so I wanted to be in the work field immediately. So then I went into the field, realized that legal wasn't always something I was interested in, but I continued to work as clerical support. But as every job that I had, I picked some new skill up. So my very first job out of college, I picked skills up in doing some accounting clerk work. And then the next job I happened to be adept at doing working on computers. This is before Windows came up, before my mouse work and things like that. So I was just very good at picking those skills up, so that I ended up training people within a short time period of starting. So I mean, over the years, I've just picked up skills and then carried it forward in new positions.
And, kind of what is a recent problem that you've had to overcome, or a project that you've worked on, something that you've specifically had to solve?
Okay. Well, solve. Oh, that was the one part I didn't cover.
Or maybe not solve,
Well, that's okay.
however
No,
you'd
I
like
get
to
it.
interpret that question.
Yeah, I know. Well, and actually, this is one of those things where, um, because I'm adept to computers, I've always kind of had my hands on the pseudo the first stage IT support. So we have an IT company that we hire to do our big stuff, the network administration and things that are related to setting up equipment. But if somebody has an issue with my printer isn't working or my computer's really slow, I go in and I do those things. So the most recent thing that's happened is, of course, with the COVID-19, I have had to make sure that our 32 staff that we had were ready to go remotely. This was a few weeks before the governor announced that we needed to have people at home. So making sure that the IT company had everybody set up with the remote access links, making sure everybody tested their computers at home, asking them if they had a computer, and then realizing they had an iPad and that doesn't work. And so getting them laptops if we had them, making sure the laptops are working. So, I mean, that's kind of one of those things, is getting everybody's information in, getting all their access set up, and then doing not only a training document so that they could take it with them and do it at home and work to gain access, but also to give them a short train and 1 hour training. So that's kind of from start to finish how I did that.
And that's not an easy task by any
No.
means. Moving from, the office setting where you kind of know how things work
Mhm.
to moving things to individual homes.
Well, something as simple as you can't Zoom from your home computer if you're working remotely, because even if you had a speaker and a microphone, not a speaker, a camera and a microphone at the office, you're working on your computer on the computer at the office. So yeah, I mean, there's this kind of thing you have to shift in your brain, like, oh, I can't print from home because the printer is at the office because that's the computer I'm working on.
So it's, yeah, I can, I guess, kind of speak to that a little bit, but I imagine the first couple weeks were probably the hardest.
Yeah.
And how is it now? Has it flattened out?
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, I mean,
Um,
flattening the
we,
curve is such a overstated
I
statement
know.
either, but
That's what I was thinking when you said that. Yeah, I mean, the first couple of weeks at the office at home I wouldn't say it was horrible, because I had the foresight of making sure everybody was remotely connected and that they were successful at it within a week or so before we even got sent home. So a lot of people had already tested that out. What was difficult is, because we're in the building industry, our industry has been hit pretty hard, because our members are not allowed to work at all unless it's an urgent or emergent situation, like a pipe burst for plumbing or an electrical problem that's causing safety issues with a homeowner. They're not allowed to do anything. So you could have people with half of their houses built, and the owners of the business can't do anything. They're not allowed to do anything. So there was a lot of concern, a lot of issues, a lot of heartbreak, because these owners love what they do. And so there was a lot of phone calls, fielding emails, trying to get them the right information, trying to get them to the right department director so that they could get the answers they're looking for. So.
and what does the role of your organization play in something as catastrophic as a shutdown?
Because we are a membership organization, and because we are the state association office, we have a lot more power. We have a government affairs director who has a couple of staff, as well as folks around the Capitol who are working with our legislators. We have a legal department that makes sure that we are informing our members properly and informing them of the law so that they don't overstep the law. We have an education department that talks about certifications and making sure that their certifications are up to date. So, we play the role in making sure that they're following the rules within our state.
And that's an important
Oh,
job, especially when things change day by day.
right, right.
Can you elaborate on something that someone might not know about your position, or something that you might have not expected when you took your current role?
This is an interesting question because it's not going to be what you think it is. So, uh, when I came to the organization, I didn't understand the industry because I've worked in a variance of fields. I've worked in medical and legal, but I've also worked in education and owned my own business and event planning, etc. When I started this job, it was a job. It was something that was fun. It was different. But I found out very quickly that it's a political job, not the position itself, but the organization. I do a lot of volunteering work in the community that specifically focuses on women and girls in education. And this organization is a conservative Republican organization with its focus on the home building industry. And so what I find that people are surprised by is the people that I know within my service work find out that I work for this other organization. They're always shocked. But the one thing I can say is that of all the jobs that I've worked in all those different fields I talked about, this is probably the best position that I could ever have because they are aware of my skills. They're aware of the positions that I've held. They know what my strengths are, and they built this position in the last 7 years. They've shifted and adjusted this position from basically handling one program to being what it is today because of my experience and my background. So,
In kind of pivoting off of that, what training do you really need for your career field?
that's the hard part because this is one of those jobs where they could have hired somebody with a bachelor's degree, or they could have hired somebody with no degree, or they could have hired somebody internal and had them work their way up. Because I'm kind of a Jane of all trades, I can kind of meld myself into just about any position. But for my background and for the skills that I have, I started with the associate's degree, like I talked about. And then I picked up things as I went along, and I continued to learn about those things. I didn't just say, oh, I know how to do that, and then not worry about it again. Like, as I said, I have experiences, doing accounting work, basic level accounting work, to the computer skills, the IT work, which turned into IT work. I had experience in sales because of past positions, which helps me with working with members. I've taught classes at the community college, so I can teach classes for BIW, for marketing. And then I've done customer service, which helps me handle things like now. So when people call and they're irate or they're upset, I can talk them down and I can give them what they need without feeling uncomfortable about it because it's natural for me.
And yeah, just going back to the importance of taking things and always looking for ways to improve yourself
Absolutely.
is a big one. And kind of going off that is, what do you recommend for students to do now to prepare for employment? And it doesn't have to be in the career field, even related to what you do, but what makes the younger generation or anybody more employable?
Okay. Yeah, I was looking at that because this, as a 50-year-old woman who was lucky enough to be in the 80s and got a small degree, I can attest that I've been turned down for positions. And so this is something that is true to my heart because you can't really go out there and get this kind of position anymore without having some sort of degree behind you. Not because it would take that. I mean, because I have life experience, I was able to speak to the position. So I'll go with what I told my daughter, and who is now 23 and working as a teacher. And I told her early on, find a career that fits what you want to do and go and find the education that matches it. So finding something. So if you really like working on computers, it doesn't matter if you're going to a trade school, if you're going to an IT shop, or if you're going to get a bachelor's degree. Find the degree that matches what you want to do the best and get the best possible education you can for that career. Because then what you do is you walk into a career you want with the education behind you, and then you'll get paid the value of what you're worth. Should. I'm married. I mean, you may understand, I have lots of people who are my age, and a few, just a few years older, who had general bachelor's degrees. Are they doing the work that their bachelor's degree was related to? Absolutely not. 90% of them would say, no, I'm doing, they may have gone on to a master's degree and then they're doing what they want. But I wholeheartedly believe in not wasting your money on education if you don't know what you want to do. And I believe in programs like what you have over there and a lot of other types where you're giving them a taste of what it's like to see what it looks like to be in a certain career. Not everybody is goal oriented, but it's really important to kind of have an idea of what you'd like to do.
And that totally answers my question of what advice would you give to yourself? Would you have given that advice to yourself if you could talk to your 17, 18-year-old self?
Oh, yeah, well, my parents tried that too. I have two parents who are overeducated and who weren't in their field. And so that was probably what steered me away from going towards getting a bachelor's degree and just getting out there in the field. But yeah, I mean, if I had somebody who sat me down and said, what is it you really want to do? Do you realize that by getting a bachelor's degree, you could start in administrative or clerical management right away instead of working your way up the ranks? Absolutely, if I was a child of today, I would say you really need to have something under your belt. You need to have some sort of formalized education or trade background. I mean, if you want to go into auto mechanics, going and getting a bachelor's degree may not necessarily be a bailiwick, but it's important that you have more than just your base knowledge that you bring to the picture, because it does make a difference in the interview that you have some piece of paper. And I hate to say that because, as I said, I've been turned down for upgrades, but for new positions and sometimes positions themselves because I don't have a bachelor's degree. And it's a shame.
I agree to that. Well, anyway, I think we're coming up to our benchmark of 15, 20 minutes.
Okay.
We've covered a lot based on what you've said. And would you like to add anything else? You've already touched a little bit on advice, but I think anyone can always adhere to more advice or anything else you'd like to add.
Just one thing is that being somebody who does a lot of service work and volunteer work, I think it's important that outside of your job, you have something that you can do for others. Even if it's going back to your school and volunteering, if it's going and doing work with Grub and doing work within the gardens or something, doing something that's outside of the work that you have, because what it does is it gives you perspective of what you're doing on a day-to-day basis at work for the rest of the world. And you'd be surprised at how easy it is or helpful it is to kind of balance your life out when you have some of that. So once you kind of get into a place where you're feeling comfortable with your career, that you consider going and doing some small volunteer work every once in a while.
I agree. Grub, the Rotary, Lions, they're always looking for people. And, I can attest to it really makes a lot of great connections.
Absolutely.
People from all different career fields. So I like that. I'm so happy that you brought that up of being an active volunteer and giving back, but you also get so much out of it. So
oh yeah, absolutely.
I applaud you for bringing that up because thanks. And then it's been awesome to have you, and we really do appreciate your time taken away from your other busy Zoom meetings, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Zoom.
I'm honored. I'm honored that you asked me, and I just love, as I said, because I don't come from a standardized traditional educational background and the position that I hold, I think it's really important to let kids know that, or students know that you don't always have to take the standard path to get where you want to go.
There are definitely multiple avenues to the same place.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks again, Karen, and we'll be in touch.
Great. Thank you.